me go big. Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Grant Mankey. I'm a software engineer at Integral, and my topic of the day is trying new things as a team. First, I'll kind of talk a little bit about how that plays here at Integral. So I've been here about a year. My 1-year anniversary is tomorrow. So yay for me. Trying new things is important for us as a consulting company, not just as a, we're software craftsmen, craftspeople, design craftspeople, etc. But as a consulting company, it's always important to try new things. You'll often have situations where you're called onto a project and, 75% of the engagement is right in your wheelhouse. For us, it's like TDD, pair programming, etc. But, maybe you're not familiar with the front end framework or what have you. And so you've got something to skill up on quickly. And so becoming good at trying new things in a group situation is super important for us. And aligning with our core focus of building great teams that build great software. Sometimes I kind of think it should be growing great teams that build great software, because it's like something that you do over time. You keep working at growing the team and the team's ability to build great software. And that's in large part an ability to try new things and try new things together. So that's kind of like how this sort of fits in with my situation now and us. But how did we come here? How do I get here? So I've worked in a lot of big corps. I think that's fairly common for software developers. And I've been on some big corp teams that are like really good at trying new things, actually. Pretty open to new ideas, pretty cutting edge and modern. And I've been in other big corp teams that really struggle. I had an interesting experience a few years ago where I was on a team where we were doing .NET C#, and we had very old tech stack. It hadn't changed for a good 10 years. And we're working on a customer-facing website and sort of chugging along. Like the team was very good, very productive. One of the smartest, overall highest caliber engineering teams I've ever been on, but nothing was ever modernized. No new practices were ever brought onto the team. In fact, you could get made fun of if you tried to suggest like, hey, let's try test-driven development, or hey, let's try TypeScript over here. People would make fun of you. That was just kind of the culture of that team. And what was crazy was we're in this pod of desks over here, right? There's not 10 feet away a pod of desks that's trying all kinds of new crap. They've got 2 front-end frameworks in their UI that are both in production because they want to see which one they like better. So they're like, let's try React and Angular. Why not? We'll see which one we like better and get rid of the one we like the least over time, right? They're just trying stuff left and right. And the craziest part is we were working on the same website. Like the customer wouldn't even know there were 2 teams. We had the same design team, the same like URL. You would not know there were 2 teams here. Unless you're, maybe if you're a web developer, you kind of figure it out. But like most people wouldn't know there were 2 teams there sitting right next to each other. So that kind of gets me thinking like, what the heck? It's not that one team's smarter than the other. We even had cross-pollination, like people moving over, and this cultural practice of either one team trying stuff or one team not trying stuff just was so sticky. So that's kind of what got me down this path of how come some teams are good at this and some teams are not good at this. So in the spirit of this talk, actually, we are about to try something new that for us, and that is Zoom breakout discussions. So for the first Zoom breakout discussion, we're going to kind of start easy. So what's going to happen if you've never done this is like Lindsay's going to queue people up into rooms, and when I give the signal, she's going to press go, and everyone's going to get kicked out into a room with, I don't know how many people there are, but 4 or 5, 3 to 5 other people in it, and we'll have a discussion topic for a few minutes. Start out nice and easy. This is probably new for a lot of you. So just introduce yourself and say one thing you want to try. Hi, this is a little template, right? So an example could be like, hi, I'm Jim, and I'm in a group that is, my family, and we're trying to get we're working on everyone doing their chores, and I think we should try a family Kanban board, right? That would be a good example. Or, hi, I'm Leanne. I'm on a juggling team. we're working on a choreographed routine, and I think we should try chainsaws, right? Another great example of a thing you'd want to try. So the idea here is volume. We're just trying to get lots of ideas and perspectives, spitball them out, and then when we come back, we'll post them in the chat, and we'll call out some that seem interesting, and then at some point I'll just move on, and the rest will be there for everyone to look at. But let's try it out and see how it goes. I don't know if we need to. Do I need to do anything?
You don't. I opened the rooms.
Okay, cool. Question, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Is my cadence too fast? Feels like it is, but it's hard to tell sometimes.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So maybe I give them like another 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Because then it'll give them the minute to wrap up.
Yeah.
Okay.
How big were the groups?
Like 4 people.
Okay, I feel like a minute a person is probably.
Okay. So now they have 1 more minute to like finish up, and people will start coming back now, like whenever they finish.
Okay.
You should probably ask for feedback how that went.
Yeah.
Okay, they have 8 seconds, and then everyone will be back.
Oh, okay. So how'd you like your breakout rooms? Was it good? Was there enough time? Not enough time?
No.
Yeah, I got cut off in the middle of my talk.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Eric was just getting warmed up.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we do a little bit more time next time. And then it should, when we close the rooms, give you a prompt that tells you that there's a minute left.
yeah,
so hopefully
Yeah, it didn't do that. It just like said, room's ending.
Oh no.
we got the timer, but we'd only just barely started talking, really. So
Okay, we'll do longer this next one.
yeah.
Yeah, when that happened, it just kicked me out.
Oh no.
Okay, good. Well, we're all learning new things together.
Yes.
Okay. This one's kind of, individual, but if anyone does want to share out with the big group what their objective to try out is.
So this is Eric. I'm actually in the unemployed group, and I was just explaining to Jeff that I'm trying new things with full stack development, trying to learn Python and React. And so he was starting to ask about Java. I just did a Java technical interview today. And although I know Java not real well, but it is a secondary language for me, I kind of felt like I bombed the interview today. I got the technical questions answered. I actually got them to pass tests, but man, it was painful doing the syntax and everything else
Yeah.
with people watching. I'm struggling with that. I got to figure out a better way to do the technical interviews.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hate that. I can't code with people watching.
I'm the same way. I mean, I get nervous even typing. I know they can't see my fingers, right? But it's just like,
Yeah,
hitting the wrong keys and everything.
I had like
So,
20 years and I forget everything.
yep.
Well,
Yep.
that's a skill to try out too, right? Typing
Yeah.
and programming in front of people.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So even if something as simple as a for each, loop or something like that, I was like completely blanking on the syntax. So
Yeah, I've been there. I have been there. All right. Let me click buttons and get this show back rolling. So here's kind of the overview of what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why it can be hard for a group to try stuff, why some teams are actually real good at it, and how we can get started if our team is having trouble. So here we are in step 1. Oh, look, it's another breakout. Yay. So when has your team recently struggled on something new? What got in your way? What do you think was the hindrance for you? I feel like if we give too much more time, we won't have, like, let's just keep it to a minute a person. So if it's just still like quick, like what, say your what's in your mind, and we'll come back. No, I'm hearing no.
Oh, we got people dropping off. They don't want to be involved.
Yeah, I
Maybe
don't.
we can do smaller groups would help.
I think a bigger group would help.
We can do that.
I mean, I don't know. I found the breakout room kind of awkward.
I mean, it looks like it's down to 7 people, so maybe we just keep it as one group.
All right, sure.
Okay.
Well, people are joining and leaving and joining and leaving. So, yeah, I guess anyone who wants to.
Yeah.
can-
I'm sort of half watching a hot thing at work, so it's better if it's a big group for me.
Okay, so I just closed the rooms and then we'll just have it be the one.
Okay, cool. So yeah, think of a time your team struggled. I have a bunch of struggle stories coming up, so I don't want to share any of mine yet. But if anyone else has a time, something was proposed and it didn't float, or experiment that didn't go well.
I don't know if this qualifies. I'm Ichin. I'm currently in week 4 of a 14-week boot camp. We're doing Java, and we just learned test-driven development. So I think a big part of our struggle was just figuring out how big of a bite to take. One of our homework assignments is trying to prime factor integers, and I definitely am obsessed with like doing things right the first time. So I'm like, all right, I'm thinking of all these different cases. So like 2 hours later, and I still hadn't written anything.
Mm-hmm.
And my teammate was just like, dude, just write a test for 2, make it pass, and just keep going.
Yeah, definitely. That's the hardest thing for TDD for a lot of people is like, you think hard about the incremental steps, but you dumb down. The steps are pretty dumb individually, right? Cool. So it seems like it was a little bit of a mindset shift that needed to happen. A little bit of like some time to experiment with it. Cool. Thanks for sharing. I'm gonna keep clicking buttons because I
I
don't want
think
to go too late. Go ahead.
where I am now, people are pretty good about trying things new. I was at a large company a while ago where we had been assigned a designated agile coach, and there were 3 people on my little team at the time. The team leader and myself and another person. They wouldn't meet with him. They kept dodging him. They didn't want to do test-driven development or change anything. I think part of it was the idea of, oh, it's going to take time and it's going to be harder to get things done. So that was kind of an obstacle.
Oops.
Or here's this outsider telling us how to do things. I was all about meeting with him because he had some good ideas. But
Yeah, it sounds like not too much buy-in.
yeah, it had been somewhere up above. It had been decided that a bunch of teams needed this, and I don't know that our individual team kind of bought in, but I was new to that company, and I'd done other stuff like that before. So I'm like, yeah, sure, bring it on, because this team's kind of dysfunctional.
Yeah. I didn't mean to click the slide ahead, but I don't know how to use computers, so I did anyway. But here I am. So one way to take a step back is think about how we typically go about trying to get our team to try new things. If you are like me, a thing that you do is you do the used car salesman pitch, and the person smiles at you just as sincerely as this gentleman is smiling back at the car salesman in the photo. You're like, hey, let's try my favorite new programming language. It's got so many cool features. And they're like, it's not, why did you go back? What's going on? It's not, you can have some good discussions, but it's not going to get you very far in the end. Better strategies to come with a plan, so if you have, one example can be a front-end framework you want to try out, right? You want to try use some Svelte.js because you read some cool stuff and your shop is React. Well, a lot of the front-end frameworks, you can plug a small piece into a bigger site, right? You can be like, let's make this button in my new framework. Some kind of smaller step, little experimental plan like this is a good way to start. There are all kinds of things you can read about, like how to sort of convince people to adopt the technology I want to adopt or try the thing I want to try. But a lot of them are they're a step ahead. There's something missing from the plan, right? And what's missing is we forgot to take care of our 3 dog friends. So you didn't know you had dog friends on your software team, but you do. And if you don't take care of your dog friends, they're gonna like crap all over your apartment, and you don't have a dog pound that you also didn't know about. You actually have to take care of them. So let's meet our dog friends and make this less ridiculous. So the first doggo is a scared doggo. The scared doggo is somehow afraid of the suggestion that you're making, right? This could be this is a very common case where you're a server-side website shop, right? You've been doing your C# server-side rendered web forms, and someone says, hey, I want to use a modern Angular or React JavaScript framework, something like this, something where we're like, hey, let's rewrite stuff. Let's do a whole paradigm shift, right? People have a lot of reasons to resist that, and one of them is fear. And it's easy in our industry to just dismiss something like this. But think where someone's coming from, right? They probably get a lot of personal satisfaction and feeling of value from what they've been contributing to the team using what they've been using. And when you say, hey, like, we're not going to do that anymore, we're going to do my stuff, like, you're threatening part of their identity, right? It's not just a technology question. It's am I going to be okay in the future? Is this part of my self-worth going to be able to persist into the future kind of a question? And even if the person does, right now have the mental bandwidth to take on this paradigm shift that's being proposed, like, there is a real thing that's being lost that will cause a person to be afraid. I've been this dog before on some of my software teams. I can think of a time I was starting out in a Java shop, and I was just kind of starting to feel like I had my feet on the ground and understood the code base and was able to like do what I was supposed to do and be a member of the team, And a couple people, Scala was the new hotness at the time. A couple people were like, hey, let's switch to Scala. Scala's got all these advantages. Let's rewrite everything in Scala. And I was like, dude, I just figured out what the heck's going on here. And I barely gave them a chance. Like, I would wait for them to say a positive point and be like, that's cool, but, you know, like it just went in one ear and out the other, right? So that's the scared doggo. The scared doggo also kind of manifests himself in wearing the disguise of imposter syndrome, or, you know, being the imposter, right? Imposter syndrome is something I also personally struggle with, and the thing that kind of makes it a little extra twist of the knife on insecurity is like, there's a real feeling that people are going to hate you when they figure out that you're not as smart as they think they are. You know, there's this fear of being found out as like not good enough that causes people to react in an extra defensive way. And so it's something to understand and nurture and be able to take care of this doggo, right, who's on your team. They you know, probably aren't hiding it and waving flags and saying, I'm too insecure to think about your technology, but they're on your team. Like, that's just like the math of the situation, right? If you have more than like 2 people on your team. So that's our first one. Our second doggo is a little skeptical. He's a skeptical doggo. He needs to be shown the ROI of what you're talking about. You know, new hotnesses come along all the time. Like every couple months, there's some new cool thing that someone thinks we should adopt. And frankly, most of them aren't worth it. Like, that's just facts. Like, you can't adopt all of them. We have to actually ship value to customers, right? So this guy needs to see the ROI. I've been this doggo about microservices my whole damn life. I still have not been in, like, someday I'll be in a situation where it's like, yes, this is the use case, like, let's build some microservices. But in the projects that I've been on, it just hasn't, to me, the ROI hasn't been there for that particular cool new thing, right? So yeah, I've been stopping some teams from trying some cool stuff too. Let's see. And our third doggo is overwhelmed by choice. This poor doggo, he just wants to build a website, and he's got this like tennis ball in front of him for React, and a tennis ball in front of him for Angular, and a tennis ball for Vue.js, and a tennis ball for Svelte, and a tennis ball for ClojureScript, and a tennis ball for Elm, and a tennis ball for Ember. There's so many damn tennis balls. He just like puts his head down and is like, ah, and just does whatever he's been doing, because there's just too many tennis balls. Again, I've caused this to happen on a team. I was on a team once where a person did everything right. Like, we should have been trying out TypeScript. It was perfect for our scenario. We had a problem with a widget, a JavaScript widget that was very complex, that was always giving us bugs. And the person went and rewrote it in TypeScript, showing how it prevented a problem we were having, and also other problems that were there that we didn't know were there. But I was on this functional programming kick, and I was so jazzed about ClojureScript. Whenever he brought up TypeScript, I was like, but did you try ClojureScript? And like, that just, people are like, what even is a closure? Like, get out of here. It just ended the very potentially productive TypeScript conversation, right? So there's a funneling function that needs to happen that needs to prevent this doggo from getting overwhelmed. So the important thing here is that these doggos come first. Like, in all of these instances, except probably the skeptical doggo, but sometimes even the skeptical doggo, in these instances, we didn't even get to talk about whether the proposed new suggestion is good or not, or how would it help us. Like, we might have said the words around it, but we didn't really have a conversation where we were listening to each other and ready to have our minds changed, right? So it can be hard to try stuff because teams aren't adequately taking care of their doggos. And the doggos, then, you know, they're barking, they're running around, they're doing not nice stuff. So why are some teams good at trying stuff? This is another breakout. Sounds like we had some good luck not doing a breakout. So we can just, you know, if anyone wants to chime off, what's something that you think has enabled a team that's been good at trying stuff you've been on? Like, what's their secret sauce for you? What thing was unique about that team that let them do that? It can be their setup. It can be a cultural thing that they do.
Something that I've used before is at my company we have Hack Week, which is part of the release where we're allowed to kind of work on projects. You know, you kind of pitch them with a target, you know, hypothesis in mind, and maybe you get to the end saying, you know what, TypeScript didn't work out for this, or it did. I think those opportunities of providing, you know, we provided a full week with snacks and stuff like that to say, hey, go wild. What do you want to go do, right? To really kind of either dive deep or, you know, be very general. That was really helpful for myself. Some people took it as a learning experience, personal learning and team learning. It was a good experiment.
It gives people a sandbox to try out a thing, gives them enough time to see if it actually scratches the itch they think it's going to scratch or whatever.
Yeah.
Also snacks.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
So
Of course.
prototyping can figure into that too, right? So you get a chance to try out a couple different things and figure out whether it's the right technology. You know, should we be using TypeScript? Should we just go with straight JavaScript or, you know, whatever? So I actually haven't been on a team that has done that, but to me, that seems like a great way to go is to try to prototype some things and figure out which way to go. It kind of overcomes that having all the different choices.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I think the team I'm on now kind of has a culture of just, you know, learning and sharing with each other, and people are always posting links to articles or said, you know, have you tried out this, or sharing training resources.
That one's awesome. I want to, that one slides right into what I want to say. So I'm going to just like, yes, let's go. They take care of their doggos is one thing. And so they're culturally are taking care of these doggos all the time, although they probably don't know that they have them. And how does that work is, I'm going to give you just like a study hint. Yellow in my Google presentation theme is like the main point, is what they call the yellow slides. That's like the theme. So they try stuff. That's like the main point. I have this like simple but not easy to implement thing. Like you get better at trying stuff as a group by trying stuff as the group that's the punchline. They try big stuff, they try little stuff, they try stuff all the time. And what I think is really like the important thing that kind of underlines all this is they have this builds up a shared history, right? Like when someone's presenting you with the unknown, you know, this new unknown thing in front of you, you have a lot of, you do this kind of gut check. And a large part of what goes into the gut check is what have similar experiences been like for me? And so the more you've got a backlog of positive, similar experiences trying new things with these people, the more you're like, yeah, cool, let's do it. As opposed to like, oh my gosh, I don't know, like whatever the three doggos happen, right? They haven't been taken care of through the history. So you got 3 levels of shared history. I think the most obvious example of how a shared history helps you is when you've tried some stuff successfully. I don't know that I really need to delve into this one. Like, but sure, like if you have an easy example is I've been on some teams that could have automated out or farmed out some of their like reliability stuff or their system monitoring stuff, but we just rolled our own. And that gave us an opportunity to experiment with some different ideas, different languages or approaches or whatever. But you know, it had an ROI. We learned some things. We had a new app that monitored our other app and sent us alerts on Slack or whatever to notify us when the app was down. So we were proud of it. It was just this positive experience around trying new things that gives us something to counteract potential fear or potential skepticism or feeling overwhelmed, right? Level 2 is having felt supported through failure. And my analogy here is I'm not like, there are some people in my company who are really into rock climbing. I've done it like twice. Both times with my uncle's super into it too, and both times with him. One of the times we weren't using ropes. There's just a small, like, I guess this is called bouldering, but it wasn't boulders when we were doing it. It was just a small like rock face that we were climbing on. You know, it wouldn't have hurt you too much to fall down, right? Even if you like somehow slipped from the top and you weren't going to slip. But nonetheless, I'm a beginning rock climber. I'm like, terrified. I'm like making these little like tiny, you know, steps and not making much progress and feeling scared. Then we move to the big rock face with more challenging stuff, but there's ropes on it. And I'm still terrified because I'm a beginning rock climber. What the heck, man? This rock face is huge, right? But then the first time I just totally like fell, just like off the, you know, just fell and the ropes caught me. I was like, oh, this is safe, right? Like I can fail all I want here and the ropes catch me. After that, I fell countless more times, but I also tried countless more things, countless more reaches that I would never have tried, and you know, actually learned how to rock climb a little bit instead of like inchworming my way up. You know, I don't have a short story for this to tell you, which is why I'm telling you a rock climbing story with IT. But when I've been on teams where I've just fallen on my face and everyone, you know, pats me on the back and is like, hey, we've all been there, and doesn't treat me like a moron afterwards, that's like the most empowering thing to me, in terms of being comfortable with those team members, right? And trying more things with those team members. Because I know they're not going to hate me and think I'm an idiot. It's my scared doggo who barks very loudly when I feel insecure. And I did keep those slides in there, but I'm just going to skip them. So shared history level 3, and this one's like also super powerful, but it's like the hardest one to get, is a history of boosting each other as this horse is boosting this goat so he can eat very tall leaves that no goat would ever think he could get to on his own. Goats are actually great climbers. I bet this goat thought he could get to them all along. But this can be a really simple thing. So the experience I had that always comes into my mind is a very simple technical thing. Me and my friend were, we were pair programming, right? When all it was deploying something to AWS. It was the first time either of us had done it a few years ago. And, you know, it's something that either of us could have read docs or went through a tutorial and figured out how to do. But this is a person I programmed with a lot before, and we each kind of had knowledge that filled in each other's gaps, right? Like I knew something about routing tables. I kind of set up servers to talk to the outside internet before, so I could kind of help with those things. She had used similar command line interfaces, so she kind of was able to make some good guesses about the CLI, and we just kept like laddering up on each other. And at the end of it, you know, we spun up a server real fast and pushed it out, and in a few hours we had an app up there. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this would have taken me all day on my own. Like, I'm so glad I have her here to help me out. And as I'm like kind of basking in the glow of these warm like thoughts, she goes, you know, this would have taken me so long on my own. I'm so glad you're here to help me out. And I'm like, bro, like I'm the goat in this picture. Like no. But so like, that's the thing. Like if you were like, hey, you know, the two of you, like just name your technical challenge. Like we will work on it and it'll be fun. You know, I'm ready to try anything. Whereas on my own, I'm like, I can try some stuff. I hope it's kind of close to my wheelhouse, you know, like the power of having these kinds of partners makes you feel confident to try new things. So this has a snowball effect. The more you've been doing this, the more you know, we can use growth analogies, we can use snowball analogies, it builds on itself, and then it builds and builds and builds. Soon a team has established a culture where they're trying things all the time. And it's a great aspect of working on that particular team. So my big yellow point is a history of trying stuff helps people feel good about trying stuff. So after a shared history, right, we're taking care of our doggos. If you were attentively watching, you remember I had a slide with little treats, right? So the scared doggo gets a treat from our history of trying new stuff, because bad things don't happen when we try things, right? We have a long history to look back of on things being successful. The skeptical dog is actually on our kind of a good thing now, right? We have all these things we could try. We have a positive attitude towards trying things. He helps us funnel to decide which things are most likely to have a good ROI, right? And the overwhelmed doggo is also taken care of, because the big thing that happens, I think, is on a team that doesn't try a lot of stuff, it's like, you know, I say, let's try thing X, you know, let's try React. Well, some other person on the team last year said, let's try Vue. and no one listened to them. And now when I say, let's try React, I not only have to prove that it's better than what we're doing now, I have to prove it's better than Vue. And we have to prove all these things without trying anything, because we don't try things around here, right? So the history of trying things really takes care of this overwhelm dog and provides an apparatus to actually get things moving. And now we can try things more easily. I love this picture. I don't know what it is or where I got it, but I just found it today. Cool. So things to talk about. We talked about why it can be hard to try stuff, because you're not used to it. Why some teams are good at trying stuff. And now let's talk about how to get started. You get started by trying stuff, right? I like to keep hammering down simple but difficult points because you have to really have them hammered in to actually implement them. It's kind of like say you're talking about weightlifting, right? And you're like, hey Grant, today I'm going to bench press 300 pounds, right? Well, there's like two plausible reactions. Like one is if I'm pretty sure you've been bench pressing like in the 200s pretty consistently, I'm like, cool, man. Like, I'm glad you're reaching your goals, right? And the other is if I'm pretty sure you've never bench pressed before, I'm like, please don't do that. Don't even, why are you trying to do that, right? It's the same thing with technical challenges for your team. If you're like, we're going to rewrite our app in, some totally different paradigm that uses a different language and different infrastructure and all these different things, it's like, I hope you've done something like that before, Like, have you tried each of those individual things separately? Have you tried all this little stuff that gives you confidence that your team's going to, culturally be able, not technically, culturally be able to weather through this thing, right? So that's kind of the analogy. So how do you get the most out of trying things? Because it's not just a brute force approach. The big things are, in my experience, are to try things openly and together, because we're trying to build this shared collective group history. Trying them openly just kind of means doing them so the whole team can see and talking about them. If two people go, or one person goes and tries something by themselves and reports back and is like, hey, I tried TypeScript, it's great. Like, no one's really convinced. But if like in a, I don't know how all y'all's teams work, but if you're in your daily stand-ups, there's a couple people trying things and they're reporting back on them, and there's kind of some chatter about it, and multiple people are involved in the experiment. Like, this kind of builds up the culture of, we're open about trying things. We're open about what's good and what's bad. We support each other all throughout. So the kind of openness is very important. And the other thing I like to say is to try things together. Not necessarily always, but a lot of the time, this is what makes the experiences a shared experience. Shared experiences are often a lot more powerful than solo experiences, right? Most of my stories about the history were all shared experiences. So these guys, these two Muppets are pair programming, as you can see, and then we've got some mob programming going on the other side. That's just a group of people programming together. I think these are great ways to try new things, or great things to do, at least for part of the exercise when you're trying new things. Click buttons. And the other big point is that experiments need to be experiments. So I've been on, they tried new things, which means they did whatever an architect or a tech lead or whatever the name of the person is on that particular team, they just did whatever that person's preferences were, right? That's not real experiments. That's not going to empower other people on the team to come up with things, because they have no agency in it, right? You're actually, if when a team tries things out, if you're a person in such a position, right? If when a team tries things out, it's not a real experiment, and they're not really able to say yes or no. The process of doing that doesn't encourage further experiments, Like, if they're going to try a thing and be like, oh, we don't like this, and then management is like, well, we're doing it anyway. Like, that's just proving all the dogs right, all the scared doggo, the skeptical doggo, like, they're all like, well, yeah, like, that wasn't a treat. I'm going to rip the house up. So how can we get started? Keeping in mind that we should try things openly and together, and experiments are experiments. It is my final breakout discussion. So what has helped your teams try new things? These can be things that usually this is things that you've tried that have led to some kind of improvement, right? That increased confidence. The fear of skepticism was made more manageable. You saw a team taking on bigger challenges afterwards, or changing their mindset and realizing a lot of times technical teams think they can't try things they've never tried. And once they try some little things, they realize they can try more, you know? So I wonder if anyone has any experiences to share. This is kind of a hard thing to think of off the top of your head. For me, I've seen surprisingly little things fill this role. Like, trying to think of what exactly it was. So it was on my, it was another team that was ancillary to the scenario I was talking about in the beginning, where like this team over here can't try anything, this team over here tries stuff all the time. There's a third group where one guy tried to single-handedly just like make TDD happen, which you can't do. The whole team has to do it, or in my experience, the whole team has to do it, or no one has to do it, because otherwise people break each other's tests and don't fix them. But he was just like going for it. And TDD didn't work out for him, because like I said, no one else was doing it. So they were just, his tests were always broken because of the people who would break them and not care to go fix them because the whole team wasn't on it. But when they saw him continually writing tests and fixing his own tests and stuff, they were like, oh, he thought that was a good idea and he's doing it, you know? So then they realized I can try things. Then that team started getting a little more adventurous. They just thought they couldn't, you know? But no one had ever just been like, well, I'm going to try something.
I think something that I've used in the past is getting an app in production, right? If it's making a process, I would say if you're trying to, launch or convince a thing, try to make it so it's like, okay, right, take those steps. If it's a new language, try to make a small little address, application out of it and put it in production, put it in AWS or something like that. I think that gives you way more vote of confidence when you go to a team and or explain kind of what you've done, and people can actually put their hands on it. It's a lot easier of saying that than saying, hey, hold on, let me pull it up on my computer, because everything works on your computer. Yeah.
So this is like you're making a POC, plug
Yeah.
your POC into AWS.
Yeah. I think really
That's
if
a
you
good
kind of
point.
if you look at a POC, right, everyone has an app, right, that probably they worked on, or they're like, oh yeah, it's just the thing that I test, to make new languages, right? But I think if you kind of follow the follow through, right, if you finish it up, you can really kind of put an exclamation mark at the end of that work and say, I finished it. This is a proof of concept of saying that this thing can work. You can adopt the same type of thing to either a process or a new skill or anything like that. But really trying to find that, that end of the sentence of saying, cool, this is done. It has met the goal that I wanted to do, and I feel more confident now because I got to this point.
Yeah, I think that's totally valid. And then just people seeing it, the fact that people can go to a URL and see it just is a little Jedi mind trick on people being like, oh, this is legit. I'm like, of course, you can put something in AWS, right? It's not, we all know it's not, beyond anyone's capability, but it's a little mind trick.
I'll even say if it's application based, adding unit tests to your POC is a huge vote of confidence that you really believe in what you're doing. Yeah, stuff like that. The fine details are important.
All right, cool. Anybody else? Or I can click buttons.
I think in general, it really helps to have some time allotted for that, or not, if the timelines aren't so crunched that you're always just scrambling to barely get it done in the things you already know. If you've got a little bit of wiggle room or experiment time, it helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure. The more pressure is on, you just don't have time.
Grant, I think the opportunity solution tree really helped us in the FAM project to try out different stuff and experiment like different solutions for the problem statements, right?
Say more about the opportunity solution tree for people.
I think Bailey might be able to explain it better.
I think aligning the team to common goals and problems, and then just consistently solutioning those problems and measuring the efficiency of how you're approaching it is probably what you're talking about, Prachi, right?
Yep.
Mhm. So having common goals and an understanding of problems and goals that you're solving.
And kind of creating a space to take some time and think about the goals as opposed to just crunching on it right away.
Right.
Well, thank you, Mary and Prachi and Bailey. Let's see. So I have some suggestions. Some of them have kind of already come up, and some of them are just kind of little things. But let's just go. One idea is pair and mob programming. If you're not already doing it, I think this is like a thing that. So first of all, like pairing and mobbing makes these shared experiences feel a little stronger when you're like sitting next to each other. You know, you kind of get that feeling of we're in this together a little more. Remote pairing works too. But you know, in different times, actually sitting next to each other is, I think, even a notch better. But one thing I would say about this is it's an independent skill. Like a lot of folks need some time to actually figure out how to pair. You know, they're not used to sharing the keyboard. They're not used to saying like, okay, like now we're gonna try your idea, and I'm gonna hang back for a bit. So I think it's a good idea to try this out as a separate thing and see if this can work for your group versus being like, oh, let's all learn Elixir. Also, let's learn pair programming. It's just kind of, maybe if you have a culture of trying things that's well established, but that can be a lot to bite off at once. Now, number two, this has kind of been suggested in different formats, power up time, 10% time, whatever you want to call the little bit of time allotted, you know, a few hours a week. Hackathons are a similar thing, or hack weeks, where you just say like, for this amount of time, like let's try new things, let's learn things, let's, you know, different companies have different rules about whether they have to be company related, but that's not really a big restriction. Anyway, it kind of gives freedom, and also it's like an endorsement from the top, which a lot of people are worried about, like, you know, oh, management won't like it if we're trying these things that may not pay off, right? So this is kind of an endorsement that counters that. It's kind of a general idea to tinker with internal apps or tooling. For teams that stick around for a long time, that have some kind of, maybe even a kind of janky little app that's their app that does something for some internal process, even if there's a better vendor solution out there, the fact that they have this thing to tinker on together, like, just seems to, in my experience, be like a, it's not like causal, I don't think, but it's like a good indicator that this team tries stuff and is open to ideas and playing around with things. And I think it does have a positive cultural effect. Number four is to experiment with workflow. Workflow tweaks can be have outsized impact for how effectively a team operates, and they're also a lot of times less contentious. Like a lot of times it's easier to say to a team, oh, let's try my Kanban idea for 1 week and then we'll throw it out if we don't like it, versus, you know, let's try my technical idea and throw it out if we don't like it. A lot of times it's easier to get people to try these sorts of things out. So just to kind of get people used to trying something if they're not already into it. Very inconsequential things, seating arrangements. It's interesting sometimes how much just like being able to affect little changes around you can give a team confidence that they can try something else and something else until they eventually, you know, if they're afraid to try new things as far as technology because of their organizational or perceived organizational resistance, which is often not as strong as the perception. And I'm big on this one. Get people taking breaks, especially for like when you're talking about trying new things and the benefits of trying new things. It involves creativity and experimentation in the unknown, right? You need some time to reflect on that. You need to not be pushing pedal to the metal all the time to get the maximum benefit out of your experiments. And also just out of your work in general. So I think getting people out on regularly scheduled breaks is a good thing. It's also kind of a cultural thing that shows giving space for things. Like if you don't have space for breaks, how do you have space for experimentation, or vice versa? You know, if you have space for one, you can kind of have space for the other. And then 6B, get people taking breaks with a puzzle. Every team I've been on where people work on a puzzle, like good ideas come from the puzzle table. It is just, I'm not going to try to explain why puzzles in particular are so good, but they just are. Like people relax, people tell jokes, and about once a week someone is like, hey, you know what? And they just say something really smart. It's like showers. It's the same thing as like shower, like, oh, dang, you know?
It gets your brain thinking in a different direction, I think.
Yeah.
That's what it does. And you're
Yeah.
still working on stuff, and your brain's still processing all that other thing in the background that you're really trying to solve.
Background processing, for sure.
Yep. Yep.
So that's it. So let's try stuff together. Let's do it.